Yes, last 2 days we were with the dimension developed by existentialist philosophers. Clear? By the existentialist philosophers. Started with Kierkegaard, and then we went into Nietzsche and Sartre, and then we wound up there by telling, well, Nietzsche and Sartre failed to see the dimension of the other. Clear? And then we came to Martin Buber, Man in Dialogue. And man in dialogue, well, there we found that we are capable of entering into dialogue in spite of our differences. And that was the thing. And therefore, that dimension is also the presence of the other, not only as held by Sartre, presence of the other is a hell, but then the presence of the other is also an opportunity for me and for him to grow, or him or her to grow. So, and thus we have defined what is dialogue or dialogical existence. Clear? And all that is. And then slowly now wind up that section by saying, the last section, a few reflections, 2 more reflections are there, and then we enter into the next section. The human interpersonal dialogues, how deep they may be, comma, there still occurs a need. There still occurs, occurs a need, or there remains, there remains, R-E-M-A-I-N-S, there remains a vacuum, V-A-C-U-M also, some use. Anyway, vacuum. Vacuum means what? A gap that cannot be filled in by personal relationships. Clear? That is, we are leading to, yes, vacuum arising from the finiteness, finiteness of the mode of the dialogue, comma, and this is met when the whole, W-H-O-L-E, when the whole sphere of the between, we said already yesterday in the class, the between, okay, is situated, S-I-T-U-A-T-E-D, situated in the larger framework of the whole. In the larger framework of the whole. It is here, full stop. It is here oh, salute. It is here the dialogue takes its transcendental dimension. The dialogue takes its transcendental, transcendental, transcendental dimension, full stop. So that is a kind of summing up. In dialogical nature, what happens? We enter into dialogue with the other. There we find extreme happiness, but it is a finite way of entering into dialogue. In other words, well, we are in our entering into dialogue with the other and trying to know the other, and there is always the limit. And that limit, but then in the between, and that is leading to, the between is leading us also to the whole of reality. Follow? The whole of reality means, yes, you realize that we are not the only two people or three people here on earth, but then where are the others? And then, yes, the animate, the inanimate, and the human beings all moving towards something that we will later see. In the words of Teilhard de Chardin, yes, moving to the omega point. So in other words, if you take the history of Western philosophy, you find there is already an final cause. There are several causes, no? Primary, secondary and all. What is that? Different causes, no? Remember? 4 causes. Yes, and the final cause. And therefore to the whole. And that is leading us to the transcendental dimension. In other words, to the divine. Clear? So in other words, the dialogical aspect developed by Martin Buber is a sound philosophy that comprises not only myself, my destiny, the other, and we open, our dialogue opens to a horizon for the divine. Follow? Yeah, that's the thing. So that is what is the whole thing. If you read that sentence, it's a pretty long sentence, that's why I dictated it. The human interpersonal dialogues, how deep they may be, there will still occurs a need, or there remains a vacuum arising from the finiteness or limitedness of the mode of the dialogue. And this is met when the whole sphere of the between is situated in the larger framework of the whole. And it is here the dialogue takes its transcendental dimension. Now, by entering into the I-thou relationship, by entering into the I-thou relationship, is all part of what we have seen, clear. By entering into the I-thou relationship that confronts us by entering into the I-thou relationship with everything that confronts us, by entering into the I-thou relationship with everything that confronts us, we are encountering being itself. We are encountering being itself as a presence, the eternal thou, in single inverted comma, eternal thou, whose presence radiates all sphere of reality, all sphere of ALL, all sphere of reality. Look at it. Yes, we are introduced already being. Clear? Anthony Kalathil will be here with his being, philosophy of being. Yes, very interesting topic, very abstract topic. It was once he had almost reaching to the conclusion of his class on philosophy of being. And then one student got up and asked, would like to ask one clarification from you. Ever since you started your class, you had been going on saying being, being, being. Now only, mind you, only 3 more classes left. The candidate is asking, the student is asking, what do you mean by being, Father? Follow? Yes, what do you mean by being? So being, not small being, but being. So in other words, the transcendental dimension that we have just now said is opening up to the sphere of the being itself. That's the point. So in other words, dialogical dimension developed by Martin Buber is something that we can very well appreciate. Because here, unlike Karl Marx, man is as a worker and you work and then you realize and you die. No, you open up also. In all those dimensions, what we had been talking was, as insisting upon was that this dimension of the other, and not only the dimension and the presence of the other, but rather also the dimension is also opening up to a new sphere, and that is transcendental. So, the being itself. In other words, well, we understand in our ordinary everyday encounter, we not only encounter the other, there are the other dimensions that we cannot comprehend in our relationship is also there. That's the point. In other words, what does it mean? Yes, the other cannot be simply reduced to that or this. The other is always, yes, not escaping, yes, beyond our comprehension. And that kind of an understanding will lead us also to talk about the transcendental being. Clear? So this section is something very important. Not only from the point of view of your third year philosophy, but also from the point of view of your life, orientation. Yeah, I mean, not that simply we reduce the other to that or this, but rather, yeah, realize that there is so much of worth in you. So, also, there is so much of worth in the other. Exactly as you respect yourself, you need also to respect the other. So, in the between, there is a sphere. And in that sphere, well, there comes develop a new dimension of the other, and that is leading also to the dimension of the absolute. That's the point. Clear? And then we are just going to wind up with the last paragraph, the existentialist approach. Clear? When we compare and contrast, the two existential approaches, when we compare and contrast the two existential approaches, well, the existential approaches for those for whom it is not clear, well, existential approach of Nietzsche and Sartre on the one hand, and Nietzsche and Sartre on the one hand, and Martin Buber on the other hand. Clear? What happened?